Welcome to the Restoration Group podcast, where we are very often silly, as we have been in the entire build-up to this episode recording, but we are always serious about investing in Oklahoma City leaders who desire to integrate their work into their faith. I'm your host, Clay Steves. Today I'm joined by my co-host, Michael Mead, and our guest, Mr. Randy Grau. Hello, Randy.
Hey, Clay. Thanks for having me.
You're welcome. Well, other than being a long-time friend and a partner to our businesses, Randy has provided legal insight and advice and advocacy necessary to navigate a variety of legal matters to individuals and businesses, both big and small, in the Oklahoma City area. On numerous occasions, he has guided individual startups as they have grown into innovative and industry-leading businesses throughout our region. Our team has benefited greatly from Randy's personable spirit and wise insight through the years.
I appreciate that. I'm not sure I know what that means, but thank you.
Randy, now was that the bio that you sent me earlier this morning that you wanted me to read, or was the separate thing that I needed to get into at this point?
Purely for reference. I sent you a bio because I wasn't sure what you could remember from all of these years together.
It's been many years.
It has been.
It has been many years. So you know what? Because it's been many years, let's go back.
Okay.
Let's go back to when you used to wear sparkling glitter vests.
Whoa, watch it.
Well, I'm just saying, let's go back to high school.
Okay.
Let's go back to show choir.
Thank you
let's
for
go back to those days.
clarifying that.
You're
I
welcome.
was like, well,
You're
my
welcome. You're
political
welcome.
career is ruined.
When you were in high school, what was your highest job aspiration?
Oh, man. You have to go back probably way before high school. I would say third grade.
Third grade?
Third grade is when I determined what I thought I should do with my life.
Okay.
And that was, obviously to be some sort of movie star, maybe on Broadway.
Yes.
Or maybe in Nashville, country music star. But the thing is, those were going to be a launching pad
for
President of the United States. Obviously, this was, Ronald Reagan was a big influence, right?
Yeah.
And I mean, he's an actor, he's president. I'm like, why not me? And so fast forward to high school, and I probably was a little more measured, and I thought maybe I need to start out in local news or law. And so I ended up in law. There you go.
So is this like the local news moment though? You've got the mic. Do you feel comfortable here? This
is very natural. This is a very natural setting. I was an award-winning anchor on KMBU Channel 3. Which was our college TV station.
In Southern California?
That probably did not make it into the bio.
It did not make the bio, but you did that earlier when we sat down at this table to record. You did some sort of a KMBU intro.
I feel very comfortable in this setting. Wow. We'll see.
How are you on track for your aspirations?
Life is wonderful.
Or perhaps they've changed?
Perhaps. So I don't know why anybody would want to go to Washington, D.C. right now, but no, it's been great. It was funny because I was a telecom broadcast news major with a minor in religion, although I was on a full music scholarship. Go figure, right? And with that, I went to law school, naturally, right? And what's interesting about that is my little brother is the one who ended up going into news, right? Going into television. So he went to Oklahoma Christian here in Edmond, Oklahoma City. And then he loved weather, and he ended up doing severe weather production here locally. And, that's a big, big deal in Oklahoma. Yeah. He went on to get his master's in meteorology and then ended up in San Diego. So he doesn't get to do weather. He does production.
Because it's 72 sunny.
That's, it's very, the weather guys out there get less time than the sports guys. So that's saying something. But anyways, it's interesting. You typically have to be pretty mobile to be in that type of industry, and that wasn't for me. And so, I went into the practice of law and then was able to do some public service. And that's been a great career path for me, and I've loved it.
Okay, so law, practicing, public service, politics, back to practicing law. Yes. Talk to me, and then where are you now? Let's do that piece.
Okay.
I didn't in my intro. I didn't say that. So where are you now after practicing law the last time?
So I'm Chief Legal Officer for the Citizens Bank of Edmond.
Okay.
And which is something that, again, I really enjoy, but I never thought that I would be a bank attorney, right? And I love it because it's not your typical bank. We have a lot of fun and do a lot of community activities, and it just is it's a unique situation. And of course, it's in my hometown. I grew up in Edmond, Oklahoma. I love Edmond, Oklahoma. I got to represent the district that I grew up in at the State House, which was just a really cool, humbling experience. And so I'm a big fan, and it is just one of those things where, again, if you would have asked me 10, 15 years ago, is that where I would be? Oh, I probably wouldn't have thought so. But that's what I do now. So with the chief legal officer position, of course, I do the legal stuff, both internally and managing, outside counsel and things like that, but also I'm involved in management and decision-making for the organization, and have a good time with that too.
Okay, so let's talk about those transitions specifically. So you're into practicing law, then you transition to the public service part, then you transition back to practicing law. Now you've transitioned to being a banker. I just like to say that you're a banker. How did your faith impact the different decisions on the journey that has not arrived, and who knows where it ends, right? God's the only one who orchestrates that. But talk about your faith impacting the journey itself and the specific decisions to change. I mean, it's not a career change because you're still doing the same stuff, but it really is a kind of a career change every time you made that.
Wow. Okay, so we're going deep.
Yeah, we are.
Right off the bat. I love it. I think God just gave me a short attention span. No. So,
Squirrel.
Where? The lesson that I learned early on is that there are very few things in my life that I am to hold on to tightly. My faith, my family, and that's about it.
Okay. Early on, you learned this. How? Where? Like you just woke up and were like, you know what? Faith and family, those are the things that are going to stick through all of it. Like what?
Did you hear the part about I decided what I wanted to do in third grade?
Yeah.
Okay. So I'm a planner.
I did.
Right.
Yes.
And so I have ideas. I always had ideas about how things would go. This is the formula, right? And if you do these things, and this is what is going to happen. It's very logical, right? That's often how we think, especially as guys, right? A equals B and B equals C, so A equals
Cause
C.
and
It just
effect.
makes
Boom,
sense,
boom,
right?
boom, boom.
But life has a way of interrupting those plans, right? And we say life does, but of course we know it's God that moves us, and He's going to put us where He wants us to do what He wants us to do, right? And to fulfill that purpose. And so that's why I saw things happen with my parents, and job losses, and so having to move and things like that when they had plans. And they taught me, or I got to see, I guess just by their example, this flexibility and not holding on so tightly except to faith and family, right? And the sacrifices that it took sometimes to keep those things together. But everything else, you roll with the punches. And I will say that my parents were really good about doing that. And so I would say flexibility is so key. And it's just not something that I think came naturally, but I had to learn that. So I say all that to say this. There have been tough career choices that I've had to make because I was comfortable where I was. And I enjoyed it. I liked the people. It was a good environment. I felt I was making an impact. But another opportunity came up, and there's that calling, that stirring that you have, that I had. And it takes a lot of prayerful consideration. It takes counsel from wise people, mentors, friends. Making a list of pros and cons, very logical things that we do. And then just taking that leap of faith to just say, I'm holding on so tightly to where I am now, to this job that I have, for this place where I am. If God wants to move me, I have to loosen my grip, right? And that has happened many times in my career, because again, it's like I didn't follow the traditional career path where I was with a firm and I got on the partnership track and practiced law for the next 35, 40 years. I think I could have been happy doing that, but that just wasn't the course.
You said stirring and calling at one point in there. Take me to the season prior to the Citizens decision, okay, to make that transition, to accept that role. What does that look like? Because I'm trying to think of like one of our listeners or viewers who's hearing that and is maybe in that season for themselves, where they're in a job that might be successful, might be making good money, but yet is experiencing something that they don't even know how to define it. So maybe try to define that season, what stirring or calling starts to look like, at least for you experientially, to see if we can connect with someone at that spot to maybe inspire them to continue to dig into it or explore it a little bit more.
Wow. So I think it's taking the time to look down the road, right? Where am I going to be 5 years, 10 years, 15 years from now?
The White House.
And it's not, no, thank you.
Okay.
And not just me, but my family. Where are they going to be? Right. I have kids they're growing up quickly. Right. We'll be out of the house. You know, where is my spouse's career? Right. What are her plans? What are our plans together? So there's this looking forward, and then also taking measure of where I was. Right. But also that opportunity, I had talked about it with our CEO, President Joe Castilla, just absolutely dynamic leader. And so we talked about it for a couple of years. What would that look like if I came in-house? Was the bank in a position for that? I mean, we've been around 122 years, and they've never had an in-house general counsel, chief legal officer. We've researched as far back as we can go. They've never had that. Wow. And so is the bank in a position where they need that, right? But what sort of things are on the horizon, and am I the right person for that? And it's just one of those things. What do I give up? Well, I give up the practice of law. I give up getting into court, which I enjoy, and representing a variety of different clients and community banks and things like that. But at the same time, I get to take a leadership position in a great organization that has some dynamic goals and things that they're doing to serve the community and, to serve others. And so it was that looking forward, taking inventory of where I was, and then also the opportunity that was there. It's just kind of those things. And again, not holding on too tightly to where I was. And I'll tell you what, I'm big into adventure. I love new adventures. And this was something I had never done before. My only job in a business setting was in a law firm. If you take out the retirement community I worked in, as a high school student, right? And so I'd never done it or experienced before, and I love new experiences. I love new challenges, and I was at the right point in my life to say, all right, let's do it.
So I'm thinking about somebody.
Legal question. I knew it was coming. Here we go.
I've been waiting for you.
Let's do the disclaimer. I help Oklahomans protect and grow their businesses.
Yes.
But not yours, Michael.
Well, for the person listening who you can help grow and protect their business, perhaps, this is less legal, more practical. So I'm imagining someone who's on the same page as you, and they're saying, I want to prioritize. On the same page as
Randy?
Perhaps in the singular issue.
Okay, here we go.
That they want to prioritize their faith in their family. So they're committed to that. That's their desire. And there's a circumstance in their life, likely professionally, that is causing a conflict of interest in one or both of those things. And they feel that tension, but they don't know what to do with it. Not legally, but perhaps as a man with wisdom, how would you counsel someone to go through that internal maybe war. I don't know if that's too strong of a word. Internal battle they might be
struggle,
feeling.
right?
Yeah. How would you advise them to process that?
Well, that's very natural. I think that tension is very natural. Very rarely, at least in my experience, is it just 100% black and white, like you choose the door on the right. Most of the time there's multiple doors, and you could go through any one of them and fulfill God's purpose for your life, right? I mean, I really believe that you grow where you're planted, right? God will use you, and like he does, he uses people with a lot of power, a lot of responsibility, in the same way that he uses those that it doesn't appear like they have that, yet they're making just as much of a significant impact on the people in their circle, right? And the people that they're responsible for. So anyways, I digress. So there are a couple different things that I would say to do. Number one is struggle with God. Struggle with God. Just recently, I was reading the story of Saul's conversion in the New Testament, and he's blinded. He goes into Jerusalem, and God goes to Ananias and says, "Hey, Ananias, I want you to go and talk to this guy, Saul. He's had a vision that a guy named Ananias, that's your name, is going to come to him." And Ananias says to God, to the Lord, right? He's like,
sure about that?
He does. He says, "Hey, Lord, I've heard about this guy, right? And in fact, I know why he was coming to town, right? And so, yeah, are you sure about this?" And the Lord says, "Yeah." And Ananias goes to Straight Street and looks him up and says, "Hey, it's me." So I have, in my experience, said, "Are you sure about this, God?" And again, that's a very natural reaction for us to have. And we see it throughout Scripture. Again, I wish that were the reaction. I wish that I just stepped out on faith and said 100%, "Hey, I'm ready to go," whatever. But are you sure about this? I mean, things are pretty good here. What do I stand to lose, right? What do I stand to gain? That is part of our nature, I think. So wrestle with it, right? Ask tough questions of the Lord. What's the worst that could happen? What's the best that could happen? Like I said, I take a very analytical approach to things, and so I'm going to weigh the benefits and the costs and things like that. And then I am going to take that to others. And of course, number one has to be your spouse, right? You have to engage your spouse in any of those types of decisions because, if it's going to negatively impact that relationship, you don't do it, or you guys find a way to work it out so that it can be done, right? And same thing with the kids. Now, sometimes people are moved in really tough situations where they don't have the luxury of saying yes or no. It's like, if I'm going to continue to provide for my family, we're going to have to make some tough changes, and it's going to have an impact, on the kids. We're going to have to uproot them and things like that. That's tough. That is so tough. And, I've witnessed that in my own family. But you go to the spouse, you go to your mentors and your friends that are faithful and that are for you. And I don't mean you individually. They're for your team. They're for your people, right? You and your family. And talk with them, pray with them, right? And again, I have known people that have come to me in that situation. I'm like, that sounds like a dynamic opportunity for you. And the more that they talked about, they're like, it's not the right time. I'm going to have to let this opportunity pass, and I'm going to have to wait. And again, as an outsider, I'm like, no, jump at it, go, right? And so ultimately I'd say, so struggle with it and wrestle with God. Okay, why are you moving me at this point? Seek the input and counsel of your spouse, your mentors, your friends and family. And of course, in all of that, you just surround it in prayer, right? You surround it in that type of quiet meditation. And I'm telling you, one of the biggest struggles that I ever had in this situation was when I decided not to run for re-election. I had served 6 years in the House of Representatives. I love that opportunity. But I was holding on so tightly to that. And it was a time that I needed to make tough decisions about what was going to be best for my family, for my life, for my faith, for everything. And I just had to pray, help me to loosen my grip on this, because it's something that I had worked hard for. And like I said, felt gifted for and called for that purpose at that time. And the other thing is, I think it's natural, Michael, to, after making that decision, to not be 100% at peace with it. You know, some people, they do it and they're like, best decision ever, 100%. I've made decisions like that and second guessed. Absolutely, Clay. Yeah. And again, I think that that's very natural, but that's part of that continuous relationship that we have with God, of meeting him in the work that he's doing wherever we are.
Okay. Take us to your lens of Citizens. Because again, not as an insult to all of the bankers out there that exist, but I like to call you a banker now, just for my own entertainment.
I love it.
Okay,
let's do it.
So pre-banker, you're going to become one.
I think I keep moving up as far as that's concerned, Clay, because I mean, it goes from a lawyer, then to politician.
Well, you were a newsman before that.
Oh, okay. So you're right. So
I'm going to go way back.
Wow. So now we're going to throw the media
lawyer,
under
politician,
wow.
banker. I mean, you're moving up in the you're moving up in the world.
Right, preacher is next.
Okay. Always been one. Always been one. What surprised you? So, like, think about your lens before working there at the bank to now having been there a while, integrated into the culture, passionate about the mission and the impact that your employer can make. What has surprised you since you came in-house at Citizens Bank?
Well, like in what sense? From a business sense? From just a...
Maybe just any sense where you had one conceived notion. In other words, you had one perception, and then once you got in house, you were like, oh my goodness.
I got you. Sure.
No, that isn't. I had that off. Now that I'm in house, I see it differently.
Okay. Yeah. Absolutely. So I had served as outside counsel for Citizens Bank of Edmond for about a decade.
So, I mean, you knew them well, even though you're 1 degree removed.
Right.
Okay. So
I was familiar with the culture. And again, that's one of the reasons why I decided to join this, because it was a great fit. It's very non-traditional. And I had a lot of banking clients that I really enjoyed. Citizens did things differently. Can I just give you one example, Clay?
Sure,
so
please.
I get a call from their chief marketing officer this several years ago. And they say, Randy, we want to incorporate Pokemon Go into our marketing strategy. How do we do that?
Did you even know what Pokemon Go was at the time, Randy?
I mean, obviously not. I was like, what's a Diglett? What are we even talking about?
Is Jigglypuff on this one or not?
Oh my goodness.
Is it just a Charizard EX? I can play the game. Let's go.
Anyways, so I learned, but still, I'm like, I'm going to have to do some research. That's not your traditional bank question, right? Yeah. So that kind of gives you an idea. So I will say this, I'm surprised and pleasantly surprised with the access that I have to all levels of the organization, or maybe I should say the access that they have to me, because when you're outside counsel, things kind of move up the chain, and you're typically contacted by one of the more senior officers. Not always. I would get calls from tellers and bankers, but that's because they, again, they said, you have a hotline to Randy if you really had the question. But it's just, walking through the lobby and just some employee grabbing me and just saying, can we talk through this issue? Or let's, I have this customer that is dealing, with this situation and that situation, and getting to talk through it. And then, of course, then the interaction with customers, because I'm used to, in the private practice of law, having clients, right? So these people have this established relationship with them and their organization, versus, customers that they're just in this time and they don't know what to do. And of course, I can't give them legal advice, but I can help guide them through the processes that we have and say, maybe this is what you should talk to a lawyer about, and things like that. And I learned this early on in my career, both in law and then especially in public service. People, they need to be listened to. People want to be heard. A lot of times, especially in my political career, people just wanted to be able to speak what was on their heart and mind, and have someone listen, even if it was one of those things that they knew I couldn't do anything about their specific situation, but could listen to them and talk with them, and we could build a relationship, even if it's not one that I'm going to be in contact with them every day. So I've been pleasantly surprised that, and I've always had kind of an open door policy anyways when it comes to my clients or constituents. And so to have it at that level, at all levels of the organization, it's been really nice. And the thing about that is I think we avoid a lot of problems down the road. A lot of times when you get the lawyer involved as a business, you guys maybe have experienced this. It's at some point down the road where it's like, so here's what we did, and so here's where we are now, so fix it, right? And so I'm at the point where we can talk through some things and we make decisions earlier on to maybe avoid some of those situations.
We're not reacting.
Absolutely.
We're proactively setting ourselves up.
100%.
Yes. No, we've never had those scenarios with you. Why?
Not that I can recall.
No, me either. I've forgotten all of those moments that happened too.
Oh, I distinctly remembering forgetting all about this.
Yeah. That's exactly right. You want to transition us to the next subject?
Yes, and we've joked about it, but to be serious, this is most certainly not legal advice.
Correct, Randy?
For our listeners.
Correct.
That's right.
Okay, thank you. Just making sure.
You may advise them to get legal counsel on what we're about to talk about.
I always advise people to talk to lawyers
yes.
because nobody wants to. Even other lawyers.
It's true.
I get that.
Yes.
I do.
Yeah.
So at Restoration Group, we talk a lot about faith and business. And even in your story, you're talking about that. Faith and family being the two non-negotiables for you. So in a world and with the political divisiveness and just the cultural climate around many issues right now, what are the opportunities that you see for Oklahoma City-based businesses that do have that desire to integrate their work into their faith, and they want to be a force for good in the community and just integrate their Christian faith? What are some opportunities you see there?
Look for the need, right? There is a need. Everyone has a need, right? I mean, if we look to the parable of the Good Samaritan, the only thing that the Samaritan could identify about the individual lying on the ground is that they were in need, right? And that need made them a neighbor. I mean, that's what Jesus says. And so what is that need within your organization? What is the need in your community? What is the need for your customers, for your shareholders, for the stakeholders? And the thing is, I think we do a good job, especially in a corporate culture, of hiding our needs. Everything looks good. Right?
I got it all together. Fake it till you make it. Come on now.
100%. That's
Fake
right.
it till you make it.
So let's focus outwardly, or let's focus, halfway across the globe on what the need is there. And that's important. I mean, that's important work. There's need across the street, right? And there's need with the people that we're sitting next to. So identify what that is. And that's not always the most serious, right? Often it's, okay, people need clean drinking water. They need food. They need shelter. These are usually very observable, serious needs. But there's also sometimes a need for community. And how are we going to establish community? What's something that we can do to bring people together that might not usually come together? And that can be fun, right? And it should be fun. And how do we build those bridges like that? So look for the need and then look for a way to fulfill that.
So another quick follow-up on that. I have personally wrestled with this, and I have some friends that they are aware of a litany of needs. They see all of them, and they feel this pressure of like, I need to go meet the people struggling with homelessness and the people who are hungry and the people in the foster system and the people that are chronically lonely. Like, I need to go help all of them. How would you counsel that person?
Sure. That's why we are described as the church, right? As God's people, right? That's what the church is, the body of Christ, that we're all different parts, right? And we play different parts. And so, that can be crippling because there is so much need, right? And limited resources, at least so we think, right? And so, at least in my experience, you're going to find where you're gifted, where God's given you certain specific gifts, promptings, callings, if you will, or just opportunities, right, that are there. And, it's fantastic to be able to go over to Uganda or to Honduras and do mission work in those places. And it's just as amazing to, talk to the neighbor that is just really struggling, like you said. So it's tough because it's like getting those requests for donations to all of these different organizations that are fantastic. And it's like, can I give $5, $50, $100 here to all these different places? Or do I just focus my resources on these three things where, I can make this sort of measurable impact? I don't know what the right answer is, Michael. I don't.
Yeah.
But I just know that, if you're faithful in that, right? If you give in that spirit that God wants you to, and that I think that be blessed, and I think that those opportunities will continue to grow and they'll show up. But again, it's like we only have so much time, right? We only have so much mental, emotional, physical energy. So, those are resources that we have to spend wisely.
Okay, let's flip it. Let's flip the question, because Michael talked about opportunities. What are risks in America now? Owners, leaders who want to integrate their work into their faith. What are
or their faith into their work?
Well, we can have this debate if you want, because this is fun. Let's see if people are even catching, because we did always say integrate your faith into your work.
100%.
Ortberg, on his episode, John talked about, it was a mentor of his or a leader from Detroit. I cannot remember the gentleman's name, but talked about in integration, the minor note integrating up into the major note. And so for us, we want to say our faith is actually the major note. It is the larger thing. And so our work is a part of that and is God ordained, and work is good. It was from the garden before the fall, but yet it is subservient to and integrates up into our faith. So yes, integrating our work into our faith. What are the risks in America, like in modern society? What are the risks to integrate our work into our faith?
Sure. Well, and just to pick up on that, Bob Goff talks about his legal career as fundraising for his mission work, right? That's what my job, he will say, is fundraising, right? That. So I can, go and do what I'm
He'll
called.
Also be like,
right, exactly.
While he's doing it.
Very happy about it. So there's any number of risks. I will...
Not legal counsel?
Well, right. Well, let's just start with the thing is, faith can be very divisive.
Come on.
I've never thought that it needed to be, but it's one of the ways that it's divisive is because of the way we approach it, right? I'm right, you're wrong, as opposed to you could be right, I could be wrong. Come, let's reason together, right? Let's talk about it. Share with me, and let me share with you. And again, in love, right? Teaching the truth in love. And I think in a lot of ways we've lost that. Now, at the same time, you can be as loving and open and hospitable and come with that spirit of just genuineness and humility. But if you're a person of faith, you're going to have enemies. You're going to have people that they just hate you because of that, right? What are you going to do? You're going to love them anyways, right?
Yeah, it's about your response to that.
It's 100%. I mean, it was the most beautiful thing. My parents, they always instilled in us as kids that, you love everyone. You love the sinner, hate the sin, right? But love the sinner. You respect everyone. You don't have to be their best friend, but you have to treat every individual with respect. And I mean, that means that the kid that smells funny, at school, that you will be respectful of them, and you will be kind. You will speak to them, right? Again, we're not saying you have to have them over every weekend. And just this summer, my oldest son was teaching that phrase to his camp counselor. I had never heard the phrase, hate the sin, love the sinner, right? And just was kind of wrestling with that. Anyways, I say all that to say this. Yeah, absolutely. We're going to take punches. And so be prepared. That's a risk, right? It's a reputational risk because people, they'll try to marginalize you. They will say false things about you. Again, Scripture talks about that. Keep loving. Keep doing what you do, which is good for others, so that will they will look absolutely ridiculous with that type of criticism. And it's hard to do. I mean, I've been in law and politics, right? So I'm used to people hurling things like that, or I've seen it happen to good friends, and it's just false, and it's wrong, and it's hurtful, and it's so easy to want to respond in kind. And a lot of times, it even from people on your own side, whether that's your own side of the aisle or your own faith family, why aren't you punching back? Are you just going to stand for that? What's the purpose? Come on, you're being too meek, you're being too mild. And I don't know, if you want to find out whether you can truly be a servant, I think it's whether you continue to serve people even when you're treated like a servant by them.
That's challenging.
And you could get sued. That would be the other risk, so.
But can't you do that just like walking down the street in America?
Sure.
Yeah?
We're talking about risk. That the thing is, you can't separate. If you're a person of faith, you cannot separate your faith from any part of who you are, right?
Okay.
It cannot be.
But pause. But people do.
Sure.
But people do. Because I got work and then I got home. I think this is the bridge that you're stating it as a fact, and for the record, I agree with it as a truth. But that's the conundrum. That's the bridge. That's the gap.
Sure.
I should say that's the cavern that we have to cross, is getting people to recognize there is actually no separation in them. Yes?
100%. I mean, that's if my faith does not inform my political ideology, right, then that's worthless, right? Where's the root? That has to start with my faith, right? If my faith does not inform my approach to business, what's the point of having it? I mean, that's the root, right? And so a lot of times we back into that, right? And we're like, well, this is how I want to do my business. So now I'm going to try and justify it, and I'm going to proof text or whatever I need to do.
Yeah.
Although, the Bible makes some really great arguments for supply side economics. I mean, that's just a known fact.
Oh boy.
Oh
boy.
It's a joke.
That was a joke for the disclaimer. Yes. Yes.
But anyways, no, it is. It's the root of who we are. And again, it's difficult because, a lot of times we don't even, I don't even know how to think truly like a Christian, like a true Christ follower, because I was born and raised at a certain time in a certain place in a certain way. And I realized that has informed my understanding of the world and the way that I process things.
Yeah.
And so there was a book that I read several years ago, The Christian Mind by Blameyers was the author. And it was just a eye-opening about really what does it mean to process everything through
The lens of
your Christian worldview. And it's difficult.
Yeah. And all of that blended with the first statement you made on this question about the divisiveness that faith can have. And so how can we have conviction, hold to it, integrate those things, be a bridge, and then yet love and engage other human beings who are Genesis 1:27 made in the image of God, right? Like how can we engage them even if they have a different viewpoint than us? And I feel like that's either the art or the posture or the something we've lost. And maybe we haven't lost it. Maybe it's always been in American politics. But
there's two. Well, I'll let you ask your question, but I already have two answers ready to go to whatever it is.
I like the second answer first, and then you can do the first answer second. Go ahead, please.
If you want me to.
Nope.
No, let's. Again, I will say that I have amazing friends that are 180 degrees from me in every, measurable way, right? And I've never had a problem getting along with people who disagree politically or on faith or any number of, cultural things, because I've always approached it with an idea of this person is not my enemy. This person is not my enemy. We can do this in a civil way. We can do this in a kind way. And I'm telling you, I've had professors both in undergrad and law school who were just, again, totally opposite and had great relationships because, again, I think there's something very rewarding in discussing and exchanging the different ideas and why we believe the things that we do. And so I've seen, especially in politics, this vilifying of the other, of the person that's on the other side, that they are not just wrong from my point of view, they're evil from my point of view. And if they're evil, right, then that justifies so many different things in my mind about how they are to be treated. Even if I don't act out on that, just the way that I see them and I dehumanize them. And again, I think that that's dangerous. You see it on both sides, right? I'm not blaming one side or the other. I've never thought that was the way to make good things happen for people. Instead, I think that we do get down to, let's start fundamentally, what can we agree on? Where can we have a starting point? Now, again, we're going to have disagreements along the way. We may never get to that foundational place where we can start, but that's number one. So there's a civility that's involved there. And again, just a thought that this person's not my enemy. This person's not evil. Let's start as recognizing that we're both human beings that can, have differences. And let's start from there. Number two. Going back to the very beginning of the book, we go all the way back to Genesis. God is talking to Abraham, and he says, I'm going to bless you so that you may be a blessing, right? And that theme continues throughout Scripture, 100% throughout Scripture. God blesses his people in order to be a blessing to others. And that's not necessarily just people on their team, right? It is to be a blessing to those who curse you, blessing to those who hate you, right? A blessing. What great benefit can you provide in someone's life? And so, again, with that sort of outlook, what has God blessed me with? What do I have? What has he given to me? And how do I then turn around and use that to bless others, those close to me, my friends, those I don't know, those who are against me, right? I think that, well, I know that's what we're called to do. I'm not saying that that is easy to do, and it's certainly not easy to do 100% of the time. But I think those are the two things that I would say can help lead in that direction of, how we build those bridges.
Yeah, that's good. That posture, I love it. Randy, we're gonna land this plane. We're gonna bring this plane
already
down. Yeah,
I feel like we just got started.
We did just get started.
We haven't even covered like a quarter of my bio yet.
There's a whole nother audio tape of that. Don't worry.
Well, I mean, I wanted to go back to high school and talk about, my friends said I was elected as like student body president so many times. They said I was the biggest justification for term limits they'd ever heard. So, I mean, I thought we were going to.
Luckily, I know lots of your classmates, and I can get evidence to the contrary. I can get evidence to the contrary.
Dangerous. Yeah, this has been great. I really enjoy it, guys. Thank you.
But you're welcome. Thank you for taking the time.
Of course.
And I just want to. I hope I say it to you enough off camera when it's not recording, but I'm going to do it publicly on camera at least once to document it. As we were just even talking about these things, false accusations. We're talking about seasons where you're being attacked and you need to be praying for. So I can think back on my journey as someone who has very imperfectly, but I've tried to integrate my work into my faith over the last decade as an entrepreneur in Oklahoma City. You have been a constant counsel for me. Behind the scenes, no one else is seeing that. In dark moments and legal battles, again, I legitimately, I hadn't thought about it in the longest of times, but I even went through a really tough false accusation season where someone accused me of some pretty egregious things that were completely false, and you loved me enough to pull me aside and grill me to ensure that they were false and to keep. But my point was, and then you chose to trust me and walk and be my counsel. I can just say that as you've talked earlier on counsel, you have been that counsel for me on my journey. So I just want to say thank you.
Well,
thank you for 10 years of very faithfully doing that as a friend and as a counselor for me. So thank you.
That's why I'm here.
I feel like you say that to me every time I call you. That's fantastic.
Well, it's true, and I appreciate that and your friendship and this great organization that you have. And that's been one of my favorite things to do is work with people like you, Clay, who just have this idea and this passion and start with 1.5 employees and then grow into, a business that is obviously having an impact. And so it's been a blessing for me and a great experience. I'm just happy to be along for the ride.
Me as well, friend. Any final thoughts for our listeners today?
Not that I can think of. I mean, I always tell my boys it's the Hard Rock Cafe logo: love all, serve all. That's what it comes down to. So
that's where we are finishing. Love all, serve all. Love all, serve all. Listeners and watchers, thank you for joining us today. Appreciate you sharing your time with us. And until next week, choose life. Thank you for tuning in. To find out more about how Restoration Group can serve you or your business, click the link in the show notes below or go to restorationgroup.co.